There is no doubt that textures and overlays can make a massive difference to your photos, right? However, the question is, can artificial intelligence help you find the perfect texture for your photo? Well, today we're going to be looking at the Infinite Texture panel built with AI, which is created to discover and add beautiful high-quality textures and overlays right from inside of Photoshop, right from one panel. So let's take a quick look at it. So we have a handsome basketball player. We can go to Window after you install the extension, Window, Extensions, and then AI Visualizer from Infinite Texture panel. Now inside of that, let's say I want to add a spotlight effect to it. So right now it has a texture in the middle and similar textures around, right? First of all, we need to find a starting point. So there are a lot of categories that you can start with. On the left hand side, I have saved some of my favorites. If we scroll down, you will see a lot of categories down in there. So we can easily go to the light category. Let's open that up. Light, and let's scroll down, and we are looking for a spotlight, anything which is similar to what we are looking for. So let's say we are looking for this, rays of light. Now as you can see, it is surrounded by textures close to it, right? Which is amazing. Now I'm gonna go ahead and click on the texture which I like around it, and then find textures similar to that. Now think of this slider as a similarity or randomness slider. They like to call it a randomness slider, but I like to call it a similarity slider. So if the slider is all the way down, extremely similar textures are going to show up around it. If we take it up, less and less similar textures are going to show up. So I'm going to bring it back down and probably go with something like this. This one has a little bit of smoke that I really love. Have a look at this one. This one has a lot of smoke too. So let's select that. The more we keep on exploring, the more we continue to find interesting textures similar to that. So similar to that, this one is now seeming to be more interesting. So let's say, let's go with this. All you have to do is to click on the add button. Now it will bring in the high resolution texture for you right into Photoshop. Now keep in mind, whatever texture you have in the middle, if you have the randomness all the way down, similar textures are going to show up around it based on visual similarity. Alright, so let's get back to it. Let's close it. Already, this looks amazing. It already came up with the screen blend mode applied, which is perfect. Press Ctrl or Command T and adjust it the way you like it. To me, this seems to be nice. And let's make it larger from here. Alright, interesting. Also, we want more of the subject to show up. So we can actually dim the lights in front of the subject and keep it as it is for the rest of the areas. So we can turn it off for a moment, select the background, and then we can use one of the latest tools. You can choose any of the tools, the quick selection tool or the object selection tool, and then click on select subject. Now Photoshop will automatically select the subject for you using the AI. Now let's turn on this texture and create a mask out of it. Now we're going to create a negative mask because we will take it away from the subject areas. So hold the Alt key or the Option key and then click on the mask button. Now it's completely taken away. We didn't want that. We wanted a little less to be taken away. So we can go to the mask properties with the mask selected. You can click on this button, properties button, or you can also go to Window and then click on properties if it's not already open, and then simply decrease the density. There you have it. We can have it at about, let's say, 50% or maybe even 60%. Have a look at it. Just so easily we have transformed this image from this, a blank image, to this, right? Interesting. Now you can go inside of the mask and then take the brush and kind of work with the mask, or you can also work with the mask inside of select subject, but there you have it. The AI is not just limited to suggestions. So let's say you were browsing the internet and you came across a beautiful texture, even if the texture isn't just a video, and you want that texture to be used in your own commercial project, and you're looking for a commercially available texture which is similar to the texture that you're looking for. You can easily use this panel to find that texture for you, to find a commercially usable texture just for you. So let's say you came across this low quality photo in the internet which is copyrighted and you wanted to use this paper crumple texture, right? You want a texture similar to this. So here's what you do. First, we will just crop this area. Even though it is low quality, copyrighted, no worries, just crop it. Now after you crop it, all you have to do is to go to Window, Extensions, AI Visualizer. Now inside of that, click on this grid right there and then choose AI Match. Just hit yes and have a look. It automatically brought you similar texture suggestions and some are even better. So let's say I want to go with this and textures similar to that are going to show up. All of this sounds amazing, but how practical really is this plugin? We'll find out. So without any further ado, let's get started. The core idea of Infinite Texture Panel is to help you discover textures. Maybe there's a texture that you look at it and go, hey, I want to add a texture like that, but you could never search for it. That's where the AI kicks in and help you discover textures according to your tastes. Let's start with AI suggestions, and there's a unique slider to help you with that, and it is called the randomness slider. Let me show you how it works. So let's say you wanted to add clouds to this photo. So we will go to the AI visualizer and then we will search and start with a starting point of clouds. It should be inside of overlays or skies or some categories like that. Let's open up overlays, and inside of that, there should be something called clouds. Alright, now it's going to bring up some clouds. I don't like this cloud so much, and it's showing clouds very similar to the one that is in the middle. We want a little bit randomness in here. So we can actually increase the randomness. There you go, to 10. Now it will begin to differ. Now for this image, I think this cloud would really look nice, these type of clouds. And let's click on that. Now it's going to show me something not so similar to that. Now I want clouds very similar to these set of clouds. So I'm going to bring it down, bring the randomness down. Now it is showing clouds similar to this. Maybe I'm more into these type of ones. So let's click on that. Now it is showing me clouds similar to those. Now I want that type of clouds. Now let's say I'm in love with this. I absolutely love it and I want to add it. So all I have to do is to click on add. Now by default, it's using the screen blend mode right here, which works in most of the cases. But in this case, I would keep it normal. So let's change it back to normal and mask out the subject. And we don't have to work too hard into this. Let's select the background and then select any of these selection tools, quick selection, magic wand, or object selection. Click on select subject, simple. And let's turn the sky back on with the selection still in there. And then we have to mask this out, which means create a negative mask. Hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the mask button to mask it out. This is great, but as you can see, the hair is not looking right and a lot of other areas are not masked out properly. So what we can do, temporarily turn off the mask, alright? And now let's say we wanted to do it without the mask. So what would we think about doing? We would be keeping the blues and the highlights, that is the sky, and removing it from the dark areas. So if you have a look at the original photos, the blues are what? The blues are the sky, and there are the highlights. If we keep it and remove everything else, it should work. Alright, so let's turn on the new sky. Double click on the right hand side of the layer styles dialog box will show up. And in the blend if section, first of all, let's choose blue. And we want to take away the dark areas. As you can easily see, the subject already came back. But if we go too harsh, the skies also start to go away. So we need to be careful here. So hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart, make it smoother, and find a middle sweet spot. There you go. Hit OK. Now you can turn the mask back on because it's affecting the areas inside the subject as well. So hold the Shift key, click on the mask to turn it back on. Now you can take the brush with white as the foreground color and with a soft round brush, paint with white over these areas. See, you're easily bringing those areas back. No problem at all. Easy peasy. So that's how easily we replace the skies in Photoshop. Now, if you want, you can add a curves adjustment layer and, just limit it to just the new sky and maybe make it brighter and add more contrast and do all of that. That is up to you. Now, when it comes to suggestions, there's one more very essential thing. What if you don't like the suggestions? What to do then? Reshuffle. Let me show you this feature. So let's say you wanted to add a vintage grungy effect to this car. So first of all, let's just load up the AI visualizer. Now, inside of that, in the categories, we would go to textures. Now in textures, let's go for acral structure. This is nice, but I don't like this particular one. Maybe with a different lighting, maybe with a little bit minute variation in there. All of these look fine to me, but I don't like the variations in this, but I still want textures similar to this. So what do? We simply click on this button called reshuffle. It will bring another set of similar textures. Now in this case, I like this one. This is something that we can work with. Now it will show you textures similar to that. What if you still don't like the textures around it? Just click on reshuffle, right? You get the point. So if you don't like a particular set of similar textures, you can actually always reshuffle. Let's say I want to go with this. I'll just click on add and there you go. It's added. Now maybe you want to just rotate it just a little bit, maybe something like this. Just make it a little larger, take it a little up. Now, whenever you add a texture, you can also go ahead and try different blend modes. It's looking amazing with screen. You can also try overlay, see how it looks like. Overlay looks amazing as well. Now, on top of that, you can also play with curves just for the texture, just targeting the texture. So you can click on the adjustment layer icon and then choose curves and click on this button called create clipping mask button. And now you can just brighten the shadows if you want to off the texture. You can also brighten the highlights or dim it down. Alright, there you go. This looks like an interesting texture. Now on top of that, if you wanted to add a grunge kind of noise to it, you can go back to that, and you can also stack up textures if you like. So I worked on the image just a little bit, and this is what I came up with. Maybe added a golden texture, maybe added one more, just 2 simple textures, and there you go. You can also change the color of the texture if you wish to. So if you want to add a hue saturation adjustment layer and just apply it to that texture by clicking on this button again, and then check colorize, you can control the color of the texture if you wish to. So this blue color is nice. You can increase or decrease the saturation, and from there the possibilities are limitless. This is what I ended up with. This is what I loved. And at the end, do not forget, let me ungroup this for you again. After you added all of these textures, do not forget to group them all. Select the bottommost one, hold the shift key, and select the topmost one, and then press Ctrl or Command G. We go overboard with this, so don't forget to decrease the opacity. In this case, we're gonna go with 70%. Now while you're browsing textures, let's say you came across a texture and you just clicked on the next without even thinking about it, and you missed something important. No problem, you've got the history buttons to take care of it. So let's say I was looking at this texture and I loved it. Maybe instantly I liked this texture, and then I remembered on the previous page there was a texture that I really liked. No problem, there you go. These are the go back and go forward buttons that you can use. Of course you cannot go forward right now because we cannot see the future, but we can always go back again, and see what we used before. And then you can go forward, and come to the present moment. Of course, we cannot go to the future. You get the point. The other thing is, let's say you didn't like this texture and you want to replace it with something else. So let's say I wanted to replace it with something like this. Instead of adding this one, deleting this one, all you have to do is to just click on replace. Now, as you can see, this is replaced. All we have to do is to change it back to overlay the way it was, and there you go, easily replaced. When it comes to adding textures, stacking multiple different textures on top of each other and creating a good combination is the key. And that's where categories are going to help you. This is a beautiful photo of a dancer. What if we add a spotlight from the top and maybe a little bit smoke from the bottom? Wouldn't that be interesting? So let's just go ahead and click on the AI visualizer, and then we are looking for, first of all, some lights. So we can go to lights, have a look. We are just browsing in the categories. That's where you get your good starting point to begin exploring into the world of textures. Alright, so we would go into the similar territory like we used before, which was rays of light. I absolutely love it. Or maybe you can also use radioactive. Now inside of that, maybe I want to go into this. And from there, maybe this one makes more sense. See how we are traveling towards the texture that we like? There are lots of beautiful ones that we can use. What I had done is when I was browsing, I saved some of my favorites. So it's in my favorites collection. And yes, we can actually save them as a favorite. Alright, so I had chosen this one. Click on add. So let's bring it to the top. Now it's at the screen blend mode. I absolutely love it. Look at the light, it's beautiful. So now the light is nice, but the color is not kind of matching. So how do we match the color of it? No problem. Let's create a hue saturation adjustment layer and limit it just to this texture by clicking on this button. Now we will check on colorize. We want to apply a single color to that. So let's go to a bluish color. See, this is actually the color of the image. Now we can work with the saturation, kind of reduce the saturation just a little bit. Now there you go. The light is matching even more. Now let's add some smoke. So let's get back to it again and let's see if we can find some smoke. So we will come back to the smoke category, and inside of that, we will look for smokes that just rise up from the ground. Let's start with the cigarette smoke. You're looking for something dense. It's coming out from the side. It's interesting. And we want a little randomness. So increase the randomness. Now, as soon as we increase the randomness, have a look at the side. The texture that we were looking for, something very similar showed up. Now you click on that, and now we want something similar to this texture, exactly similar, not very random. So let's bring the randomness all the way back down. This one is interesting. Let's go ahead and add it. Click on the add button. Now the texture looks absolutely amazing, but the color just doesn't look right. So similarly, we can just bring in the same hue saturation to this one. So let's make a copy of the hue saturation and take it to the top and just apply it to this texture by holding the Alt key or the Option key. Click on the line between these two layers. Now it is just applied to the smoke. So we can select the smoke layer, Control or Command T, and let's make it a little smaller. Let's bring it down, something like this. This looks to be something we can be happy with. Alright, that's nice. Now we need to use some masking. So create a mask right in there, and let's choose gradient. And we will take it away from the bottom, just like this. Alright, it looks like smoke is rising from the ground. Interesting, isn't it? Now you can take all the time in the world with this. And then you can select the mask, take the brush with a soft round brush and a low flow, probably at 5%, then paint with black on these areas because it's kind of too much smoke in there. All right, that's very, very interesting. Now on top of that, you can also come back to the hue saturation, maybe increase the saturation to kind of match with that, decrease the lightness a little bit. All right, and then you can just mask in the subject, maybe mask out the leg and do all of those kind of fun stuff. So take the brush with black as the foreground color, remove the smoke from one of these legs, from these areas, just to make it a little more interesting, showing that the leg is out of the smoke, that leg is in the smoke, right? Lots of interesting things you can do. Bring back the smoke a little bit in there. All right, now if you want, you can also decrease the opacity of that one. So we can go at somewhere about 70%. That's nice. Now this light is not enough. We need to layer that up. So let's go to Window, Extensions, AI Visualizer, and then let's open up the lights again. Lights, and here we're looking for another spotlight. Something like this. Let's select that. Now we are looking for something soft. So we can actually go with this. This is interesting. Now click on the Add button. And now it's added. We just need to flip it. Control or Command T, right click on it, and then choose Flip Horizontal. Then we can take it up right there and have a look. Just by adding this, it makes so much of a difference. Now you can decrease the opacity if you want to, but I'm going to keep it at that. This is interesting. Also, it looks weird right now. You know why? Because the hue saturation just went up. We need to make one more copy of that hue saturation, bring it down and apply it to this original smoke at the bottom. So there you go. Very interesting. You can also add a soft focus effect, and I've actually completed this image right in there by just adding a soft focus effect. You can actually download the complete finished PSD by checking out the links in the description. The next feature is something that we have already touched upon before, and that is the AI match. It helps you find similar textures to whatever textures you have. So let's say you were browsing the internet, you were just looking for stock photos, and you came across a really nice texture. Either it's very expensive to buy or license, or it's just not available to use commercially. So you can bring it into Photoshop and then find similar commercially usable textures that you can use in your project without any issue. So suppose this is a texture I downloaded off the internet, right? This is a very low resolution texture, but I want a high resolution version of it and also something similar to this one that I can use. So we can easily go to Windows, Extensions, AI Visualizer, and then with the current layer selected, wherever the texture is, click on this grid right there and then choose AI Match. Hit yes. Have a look at it. It found you so many similar textures to it, and that too, now you have different variations, different choices that you can go with instead of just sticking with the existing ones. So let's say you like this, you click on that, and now you see another textures. You want to go with this, right? So this is how you can easily find similar textures no matter where you find them. Maybe you found them in a movie, you can take a screenshot and then just bring it into Photoshop and then search for it. Or maybe it's from Google. Wherever there is, if you're looking for commercially usable textures, this is a great way to find it. There's also one more feature which is very similar to this. Let's say you were using the AI visualizer and you added a particular texture in the past in one of your photos, and you forgot to probably save it as a favorite, or maybe you want that texture back in the visualizer so that you can look at similar textures. Well, there's an easy way to do that. So in this image, I added this spotlight at the top, but I forgot where it was in the AI visualizer or how I got to that. All you have to do is to open up the visualizer, and then with that texture layer selected, you would click on this grid again and you would choose Get Texture, and you would find the same texture inside of the visualizer. Now you can choose similar ones, add the same one in another image, whatever you like, maybe add this as a favorite, whatever you want. You want this back in the visualizer, you can easily do so. Have a look, let me show you one more thing. Even if you just rasterize it, right click on it and then choose rasterize layer, even if you take a brush and then you paint on that, even if you just destroy it with some different strange colors right in there, let's increase the flow, and you have destroyed this. Have a look, it's kind of destroyed. Still, you can find it. Let's go to Window, Extensions, AI Visualizer. Even if I click on there and choose Get Texture, it will still find it. Interesting, isn't it? The AI Visualizer library has tons of textures and elements which are pre-masked. Either it's absolutely transparent, or it's masked out with BlendIF, or you can also convert it to a mask. There's a lot of things you can do. Let me quickly show that to you. So let's say you were looking for an element. You wanted to add a bird here. So let's go to Window, Extensions, AI Visualizer, and let's open up the categories. And inside of that, there's a category for animals. and there's Flying Eagle. It doesn't mean that it only has Flying Eagle. You can choose one of these, and around that you will find a lot of other flying things like parrots and butterflies, and then you can just increase the randomness to kind of show you different types of elements, like even milk flying in, which is also masked out. So in this case, I'm going to go with this eagle. You can also try in different ones, but I'm just going to go with what we have. So if we just click on add, you will have a look that this is masked out, absolutely transparent. So let's have a look. See, this has a transparent background. It is very hard to find galleries of isolated textures or elements in the internet. This is very rare. Have a look at this. This is already masked out. You can actually just adjust the size and then just add it to this particular image. So let's say you want to add it right here. It's looking pretty nice. So let's rotate it just a little bit. There you go. It's matching. It's looking nice. And after that, you can do a lot of other things to kind of match it. Maybe let's go ahead and create a curves adjustment layer. Because the sun is at the back, it will be a little dark. So we will take it down and we want to limit it only to the eagle. So click on this button. This will limit it just to the eagle. And then let's zoom out and make sure they are matching. So I'm going to take it down, like really down, maybe even the highlights a little down. Okay, there you go. This looks okay. But also, since the feathers are thin, the light will just seep in from the feathers, right? So here's what we do as well. We click on the mask, take the brush, and with black as the foreground color, with a soft round brush, bring back certain areas where the sunlight is coming through. Just like that, right? See the sunlight coming through those areas? You can also create one more curves adjustment layer at the top, curves, and take this slider at the top to the left hand side, just like this, limit it just to the eagle. And now select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. We can take the brush, white as the foreground color, and we can bring in around the corners. See what we're doing with this? Just a little bit there, a lot here because the feathers are thin, so the light would be coming in. Maybe here, a lot of light coming in. There, you get the point. I'm not taking my sweet time with this, but you get the point how you can easily match it with that of the background. And then you can go ahead and add some textures, maybe blur the background a little bit. I've already done it right in here. I have matched it, just add a little texture to kind of match it even better. If you want, you can download this PSD, it's linked up in the description. You can get a lot of elements which are already pre-masked, maybe with BlendIf as well. We will look at some examples later. Have a look at this example. Here we have brought out a texture of a flying milk. It came in with BlendIf applied. So let me show you from the very beginning how we applied this. Let me delete both of these layers. So first of all, if we go to the visualizer, extensions, AI visualizer, I think I saw milk right in there. If I select that, see, this is an interesting one. Now I want something very similar to this. So I will decrease the randomness, bring it down, and maybe this is something I like. I can also go with something similar like this. This is something I'm happy with. Click on the plus button. Let's add it. You would notice that it's already masked out, but it's masked out differently. It's masked with BlendIf. Have a look. It's also masked out. Nice. But a BlendIf is applied to it. If we double click on the right hand side of the layer, and if we take the BlendIf and if we make it normal, you will see that it's absolutely black. The way this was masked out was taking away the BlendIf like this and working with that. Let's keep it as it was before. There's no problem with it. We can still work with it. However, there might be a problem. The problem is, let's say I just have to put the subject at the top. So I'm putting the subject at the top, and then let's mask out the subject. With any of the selection tools selected, either the quick selection tool or the magic wand tool, any of that, and then click on select subject. The subject is now selected, and then we would click on the mask button to mask it out. Double click on the right hand side of the layer to create the shadow of the subject onto the milk, right? We will click on drop shadow, one of the drop shadows, and it's creating a pretty nice shadow. You can just go ahead and control the size and all of that. Let's zoom out a little bit. The way the professionals handle the shadows is just they move it directly on the image. Interesting. So let's increase the opacity just a little bit. Hit OK. Now I only want the shadow on the milk, the subject on the milk. So I will hold the Alt key or the Option key and then click on the line between these two layers. Now the problem begins to show. Because the milk gets darker, due to the BlendIf, the shadow areas also begin to go away. We do not want that to happen. That's why we want to convert the BlendIf to a mask. So before doing this, let's go back. Let's turn it off for a moment. With that texture selected and BlendIf has already been applied to it, we can get back to the visualizer and then click on this grid right there and choose Convert Blend If to Mask. That way, Blend If is not applied right now and it is converted to a mask. Now when you turn it on, and now when you hold the Alt key or the Option key and click on the line between these two layers, the shadows won't go away. Now you can take your time to do the selections very well. I'm just going to show you the final result. Have a look at it. Let's say you were adding a texture and it already comes up, let's say, with the screen blend mode. And you don't want to come it by default with the screen blend mode. You can of course open the visualizer and click on this grid and choose Ignore Layer Blend Mode, right? However, what if you want to ignore the blend if? So let's say you wanted to add a grungy frame to this. So I'm going to go back to the overlays and then let's choose a grunge frame border, something like this. And maybe I want something which is a little harsh. So this is something that I like, and let's go ahead and add it. Now you will notice this is nice, but blend if has actually been applied already to this, because if you add a different color background, you will notice, right? Something like red. Have a look. Blend if has been applied to this to make it transparent. I did not want that. So here's what we're going to do. Let's delete everything. We're going to go back to this. Click on this grid right there and choose Ignore Blend If. Now when you add it, it will ignore the blend if. Simple. It will just not apply the blend if that already comes in with that of the texture. You can actually move it, adjust it the way you want it, and then maybe I will use a blend mode with it. Screen. You can then make it a little smaller, larger, erase it from the top, from the bottom, whatever you like. When you're working with a ton of textures like these, it obviously makes sense to save them and create some of your favorites. Otherwise, it will get lost and it will be very hard for you to find them again. Alright, so let's say I was working with this and I still don't remember what this smoke layer was and where it was, and I didn't save it. So as we learned before, we can find that exact texture in the visualizer by using Get Texture. So let's say we have selected this layer, the texture we wanted to find in the visualizer. We open the visualizer and then click on this grid right there and then choose Get Texture, Current Layer. It will bring that texture. While you were browsing, you found this. We want to save it. So you can of course create folders if you want to, or directly save it in one of your favorites. I prefer create a folder, keep things organized. So I'm going to click on Create New Folder and let's name this Smoke. So every smoke texture I find, I'm going to place it here. So I'm going to add folder. Nice. Smoke folder is created. Now inside of that folder, you can actually save it by clicking on Add Favorite and Smoke from Ground. We can name it that way. And we can choose the folder smoke, or no parent means it will be outside. You can choose smoke, add favorite. Now it is added to the smoke folder. So always it helps to save your favorites and keep them organized into folders. And the AI visualizer lets you do that. And keep in mind, this is all online. You don't need to worry about things getting lost. If you want, you can also assign shortcuts to open the visualizer and maybe even define it in the Wacom tablet buttons, express keys. But in this case, let's say you're working with the keyboard and you want to have a shortcut to open the panel. You can just simply go to Edit and then Keyboard Shortcuts. Inside of that, we will go to Application Menus, and then it was inside of the Window menu, right? Window, Extensions, and inside of Extension, it was AI Visualizer. We can just apply F3. So F3 is already in use. And it will be removed from copy. It's fine. I already use Control or Command C. So F3 is fine. Let's accept it. Hit OK. Now whenever you press F3, the panel will show up. Press F3 again, it will go away. Nice little shortcut. The panel personally impressed me, and I've been using it for a while now. If I were to add an extra feature to it, it would definitely be an addition of a text search bar. The presence of this would totally nail getting the perfect starting point as a reference to discover new textures. Guess what? I already told this to the developers and they're working with a beta version with the text search. I respect that they listen to their community. Although there are lots of panels that let you search for stock photos right from inside of Photoshop, this one is unique. Because instead of searching, it enables you to discover new ones. Because sometimes there's a texture that we don't even know would look great on our image. And the best part is, all of these textures and overlays are in extremely high resolution. And you're allowed to use it commercially. And the best of all, you don't have to pay per picture, which is always excellent. Besides, the library of textures keeps growing constantly. And above all, textures do bring out the best in your image. Why not use the ones that are made for compositing? You can get the Infinite Texture panel at the link in the description and use the coupon PixImperfect to get 25% off. I hope this video helped you and showed you something new. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys again in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.